Today I'm reviewing an old favorite of mine that I used to take advantage of when I used to go to the gym, and that is an assisted pull-up and dip station. And this is the one put out by GMWD. I reviewed a couple of their products already, from their lever gym to a recent power rack of theirs. And when they reached out to me to do this review, I was a little bit reluctant because I didn't have a whole lot of space of this in my gym. We'll see exactly where this thing's gonna go because this thing is a beast. But based on the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of reviews, they put out pretty decent quality equipment at a lower price point. And I personally did love using these things when I used to go to the gym. I'll get into that. I thought I might as well, give it a go and try it and set it up for you guys. The other reason I agreed to do this review is because, like any company I really work with, they allowed me to make an honest review. So this is not a sponsored video. I will link an affiliate link down below if you guys do want to pick this up and help support me and the channel. They did, of course, send this to me free to review it, so I'm grateful for them for that. But as always, I will give you guys my honest thoughts, show you guys the pros and cons with this, and generally how I plan about using this in the futures. All right, so first talking about the unboxing and assembly, this thing came in 2 boxes and was bigger than I thought it was gonna be, a little more solid than I thought it was gonna be. Didn't even look at the dimensions when I agreed to do the review. I knew I had enough space in the garage, at least height-wise. We'll see where I ended up actually putting this thing is another story. But much bigger and heavier than I thought. Once I unboxed it, seemed like a lot of parts, but I was very pleasantly surprised once I saw the manual. Just like with their power cage, I can't say that same thing about their lever gym, because lever gym did take some time. But on their power cage, and just like this one of the easiest builds. I shouldn't say with time-wise, it'll take you a little bit of time. But as far as organization is concerned, every part and piece is kind of bagged, has a corresponding letter that you find in the instruction manual. So that is basically a godsend when it comes to putting together these types of things, and also kind of a fun process too. It really does become, as I've said in many videos, kind of adult Legos, makes assembling this thing a little bit more of an enjoyable process. I did most of this myself. You will likely need a second person at some point in time. For best assembly, I would say have 2 people the whole time, but ended up using actually a 7-year-old, one of my kids, to actually hold a piece in place for me here or there. But by and large, this can mostly be done by yourself. I definitely recommend a second person. I did mess this thing up on the assembly, and I am not gonna take this thing apart to do it over again, but I will show you guys where I messed up in 2 key areas. First one was right here. So as I started doing the finishing touches, I saw this. I'm like, what does this go to? I realized this is supposed to be the anchoring clip for this, so that when you're done, this kind of essentially kind of holds it in place. When you're done, you kind of rack the weight at the bottom position, or if you got counterweight on that side. But I realized that no, this is supposed to go up there. And unfortunately, I'll probably get like a rope at some point. For the time being, it does kind of hold in place, but just be careful that you put this there. Probably the dumbest thing I did, and I'm gonna blame the fact that I was doing this in frigid temperatures and was trying to finish as fast as I could, right here. So you can see these are the band pegs that attach resistance bands as an optional counterweight, are supposed to go on that side. So you can attach it to the lever up there. So just be careful, otherwise you can't really mess this thing up, but I'm one of those people that can mess up a simple job. So I thought I'd share you guys that mistake so you guys don't repeat that process. So getting into some basic features here, if it isn't too obvious how this thing works, it works through this lever mechanism here. This arm isn't too long. If you're worried about space, I thought it'd be actually longer than this, but it seems relatively kind of compact. This pad is also not huge. It's not totally small. I say it's somewhat adequate. Padding seems okay. This arm comes down to kind of lock it into place so that now it won't budge if you want to load the weight on. Just take your counterweight, load it on each side. You can see there's a little bit of give. When you do load this on, then once your weight is loaded, you can get on the pad, rack that thing, and now you're ready to go for your exercises. When you're done, just rack it again. And then up here on the pull-up bar position, you can see they took some liberties. If you ever saw the PowerTech version, they definitely kind of ripped this off, minus the band peg, I think. But very similar in function. This just kind of can fold forward and back. I do like the coating and kind of the diameter of this. It's a smaller type of diameter in a pull-up bar, but I actually prefer that versus a thicker one. This way you always have the option to go thicker if you want to put things like fat grips or some other attachment up here to make it thicker. So I do like kind of how this feels. There's some knurling, decent knurling on the side. Nothing right here though, but if you're done with this, you can rack it, or if you don't want to use that, you can do more of this neutral grip to do your pull-ups. The grips on the pull-up bar you can see are a little bit different. I'll show them to you in a second compared to the dip bars. kind of more of a softer type of thinner grip here than compared to down here. I mean, very similar. This is just a little bit thicker. Kind of makes sense, I think, for doing dips versus pull-ups. And these little foot pads can be adjusted about 3 notches. This is it kind of fully extended. This is it fully kind of lowered, but pretty substantial. Nothing too crazy right home about that. Just in general, how this thing feels, it definitely feels solid and feels heavy. Doesn't feel overly cheap. Of course, there's a little bit of a sacrifice, I think, in this price point when you're paying this much money. Again, this is kind of relative though. It's still $500. But when you compare this thing to like the Power Tech, which is like $1,000, not knocking them, I haven't tried it, but this thing seems very comparable as far as how heavy and sturdy it feels. With even the Power Tech is not really a commercial grade item. This thing is not commercial grade quality, but still better than what I would anticipate for just something in the home, which was the same thing I found with their lever gym and their squat rack as well. Everything that was delivered had no dings on it. It was wrapped pretty good. There were some little light kind of, you see it's kind of orange dusting that I think does come off. It was up top too, but not a big deal. That was on some of the metal. At the bottom, these could have been a little more buffed up. This is just kind of like a hard plastic that kind of protects, you know, this arm from hitting it. What I really wanted to see more of, or the thing I was probably more so disappointed in, and this is the same on their Power Rack they had this, is that these holders here are made out of plastic. Now this is another feature that's cool. You got this other kind of holder for your weights, which is just a nice added storage site for weights in general. So you can see on this side, this either came scuffed up or I scuffed it up already, and this was within 1 day. So this is probably the weakest point. You can see that even got dinged up too. That could have been for me, but still the fact that I had this 1 day that's already got dinged up, I would say this is definitely the weakest point of the machine. And it looks like definitely these things are the same. So just knowing that I have these, I'm gonna kind of baby these a little bit. And then getting into where it counts, how this thing feels and performs, I think it works very fluidly, feels great. If you put me on this versus something else in the gym, I don't think I'd really notice much of a difference, even when it comes to like the connection points on the tricep dips and also the pull-up bars. They all feel excellent. When it gets into kind of why I even wanted to pick this up, at the start I kind of said if I'm even going to consider picking something like this up or doing a review, I wanted to have space for it, which if I do run out of space, I'll probably gift this to somebody. This is definitely kind of a luxury item, I would say that for sure. But like I said, some people do really love these things, and I was one of those people. When I used to go to the gym, one of the things I would supplement or switch up instead of doing, say, a lat pull down or a vertical pull would be this assisted pull-up machine. I always feel like there's something to that in the way the stimulus it gives off, the way you can kind of dissipate that weight, that really worked my lats in an efficient way. So unlike maybe some people who might want to pick this up to kind of work on pull-ups or dips, that's not really the intended purpose. I would pick this up or really use it. I was just literally using it for like a back and also tricep, you know, slash chest station. Because I think when it comes to dips, dips are another great exercise. Obviously, one of the issues with dips is you can only do so many of them. Certainly you can work on them. But I really love getting in and dialing in that tension. So if I want to go over a slower cadence, work to a higher rep range, I always find like dips in general are great and they really work. Obviously the triceps, but even the chest, great exercise. That if I'm going to do dips, I always want to do it really on this assisted type of machine. And you could argue, of course, getting to the kind of whole luxury aspect of this machine, you could certainly use, if you got a squat rack or like maybe my lever gym, you could rig some pull-up bands and kind of get the same purpose. It's just a little different. Again, there's obviously a comfort factor, the thing that you're kind of locked into the machine. I just feel like you're more dialed in and connected versus with bands, I'd be kind of swaying around a little bit. So again, it's something you might not necessarily want to pay for. The other gigantic thing to consider, which is kind of in that con territory a little bit, is the fact that this thing is so tall. I think it's like 88 point something inches. I forget the actual dimensions of that. I think that was a complaint people had about this, or these things in general, is that for most people's basements, it's just probably not going to work. This is going to work in like a bigger space, probably like a garage. So for most people, this might already kind of take out this option for you. But by the nature of the design of the machine, I think it kind of has to be this big. So I'll just say in summary, this is definitely something that I am grateful to have. Hopefully this works out in my space. I got a little nook over there I'll try and put it into at some point in time. This thing is still heavy, it's still kind of big, so it's definitely a consideration if this is gonna be worth it for your gym. What I will say is at the price point it's at, the build quality, I think, other than obviously the minor imperfections, or I should say the imperfections, that are there. That's something that can be considered. But I will say this, so far this company is living up to kind of what they're trying to do, which seems to be bringing things that are commercial grade type of equipment or just lower price point items into popular home gym space equipment. So hopefully that was beneficial to you guys. If you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, let me know. As always, if there are any issues with this machine, I will pin a comment at a later date, but so far this thing is working out good. I will see you guys on the next video.